So now I have what's left of this still in the hole. I'm going to attempt to work an easy out and get it out. If that don't work, well then, we're in for a long day. I now have the fan clutch sitting on the table. I will show you one other thing that's annoying with this thing. Is right here there's a zerk fitting, a grease fitting. And it's obviously very difficult to get to with it mounted in the truck. It's basically impossible. But what went wrong is here. Right here, this was threaded in. And this had broke off. So now I have what's left of this still in the hole. I'm going to attempt to work an easy out and get it out. If that don't work, well then, we're in for a long day. And it's moving out nice and easy. There's got to be a better way to do this, or should I just leave it alone? There we are. So now I could thread a new piece in there. All of that over this little bit of material. What I've done here is I've taken the zerk fitting out of the grease fitting. It goes right here. And the zerk fitting has the exact same as the air fitting that goes in on the other side, which is simply 1/8 inch pipe. This is the piece of pipe that I took off that was broken. What I'm going to do is thread this fitting in that goes from 1/8 pipe down to 3/16 tubing with a little collar here. So this will all thread into where the grease fitting was. This tubing will then go from the fan clutch to wherever I deem necessary to put not an automatic greaser, but an alternate greasing location. That zerk fitting right there makes it impossible to grease with my grease gun. Now what I've also purchased is this bulkhead. It's real simple. You drill a hole. It's real simple. What you do is you drill a hole, you put this piece through, put your lock washer, and then your nut. Why is this so special? Well, it's not specifically special, but the 1/8 pipe on the other side, I'll have 2 of these, thread in like so. And then the zerk fitting threads in through the tubing into the other fitting threaded into the fan clutch. Now I can grease it without having to actually crawl up in on top of the engine and not able to actually get my grease fitting in the fan clutch. And since this fan clutch never failed, I'd like to keep it that way. I've taken this collar apart. Now the only thing that concerns me is the angle which that comes out. I have to worry about it hitting the bolt or nut that threads into the engine block to hold this thing from riding up and down once the adjustment's made on the belts. Thread that in, and I have a socket that will work, same as the zerk fitting actually. We'll thread him in. Now we're ready to put the tubing. First, I bought fittings to get the air into the side of the fan clutch itself to actually make it function. I got 2 different sizes. It really doesn't matter. And a nipple. I've got my pipe, my coupler, and my original 90-degree elbow, which attaches to the air hose. But first, I'm going to apply Teflon tape to the threads. You apply Teflon tape in the direction in which you tighten things. That way it puts the tab over that way. Otherwise, if it's this way, it'll tear it open. What I do is I take the tape and lay it flat like so, and then start to turn it as if I was tightening it into something, keeping a little pressure and rolling as we go. Yes, I know some people have the Teflon that you just goop on there, but to be honest, I've seen that used a lot. I've seen it fail. It's still in liquid form most often when people are tightening the things in. So I don't know how effective it is in big gloppy form, and I don't know how effective it is when it's still basically liquefied. I've never had this stuff fail. We'll put our connector on, roll this over so you guys can see from that angle, hopefully, and this side just threads into the bottom like so. Now I may have broke this when I took this apart, or rather, now I may have broke this when I took it off when I rebuilt this engine. It certainly is in the realm of possibility. You know, banging it into stuff or what have you. This way I'm tightening the nipple and the pipe. I can also get a small wrench and turn the pipe alone. Eventually that's what'll happen. Now that I have that on, I'll put the Teflon on the elbow like I did the others. There is no need to put Teflon on the hose connection. That is a flare connection on the inside. This is what makes the seal. The threads only hold the coupler together. The seal is not made with the threading. I don't know how many times I've seen that mistake made. In the end, this elbow must face up, because up is the passenger side of the truck, and that's the side of which the air hose comes from. Your application may be different. Good. So now I have to watch out that I don't bash into this and break it again. I think that's how it failed the first time. Now what I do is I take my tubing, which is just 3/16 plastic tube, nothing fancy. Take it here and push it through. Make sure your collar is on the inside. See it? Push your tubing through. Now what you do, first of all, get the right size wrench before you start. That would be helpful. I'll be back. 7/16 it is. Take your collar, take your hose, collar, and end assembly and put it all in, and put it in as far as it goes. Then push this down and start to thread it while pushing down on the hose. That's going to make a compression fitting, or actually a compression seal. Once it's in, start tightening it. Of course, in this particular application, easier said than done. One way to skin a cat. Either that or I gotta break out the crow's feet. Oh, and I put it in upside down, didn't I? Fail. Yeah, and push the tubing down and then start tightening one notch at a time. If at first you don't succeed, try again, or get the right tool for the job. Back in the day, working on aircraft, crow's feet was your best friend. This little sucker making me look like a fool. There you go. With a little bit of persistence, as Kid Rock says, persistence pays. There you go. So now we reinstall this in the truck. Now I take the completed assembly and attempt to put it in there without bashing my new radiator. Put that bolt there in preparation. Excuse me, Mr. GoPro. Hope that's good. I want to pinch our new tube between the mounting and the fan clutch. All right. Okay, that part's in. Whew. That will make you work. Remember that bracket goes in there. I know the lighting is probably terrible for you guys, but I need to see. I'm trying to get you better angles, so I'm doing the best I can. Thread the belts. Trying to make sure you got them in the right shivs. There we go. Now tighten it up. As you raise that, make sure, absolutely sure, your belts are in the right shivs. This one is not. Oh, it is. Excellent. Remember that gap we made earlier between the washers and the fan clutch? You gotta bear in mind, guys, I did this last. Half this engine was disassembled, or the radiator was missing, or whatever. If I loosen on them belts, that fan clutch will come in a little better. Watch. Oh, look how nice that lines up now. I don't like how these were loose, so I put 2 washers on each one. We are eventually going to replace that air conditioning compressor. Actually, I have the compressor. Now that the air conditioning compressor is snug, I may now tighten the belts. That's it for this side. I made this bracket here. I already drilled the holes This is where that piece will go in for the greaser line, and this is just a mounting hole. I drilled a hole in the alternator bracket, so we'll put the bolt through with a washer through the alternator bracket, a lock washer, and a nut. There's a reason why I decided to bolt this on rather than weld it on. These alternator brackets do occasionally break, and if it breaks, I have to have an ability to replace this bracket and put it on the new alternator bracket should I ever need it. That's why I didn't weld it. Obviously I painted it yesterday. This is now the next day. There we go. I'll thread this plastic line through the hole and figure out a way to route it so the tubing doesn't rub anything. I'll find something I can maybe hit with a zip tie, somehow wedge it in somehow, or just keep it tight enough. Actually, that seems to be good where it's not rubbing anything. Make sure I have the desired length. I do. Excellent. So now I cut the line. Done with that. That's extra. Done with it. The first thing, don't forget, it's going through. Put the nut in the lock washer. Then put the whole thing through the hole. The collar and the retainer. Put it in. Push the tubing in. The connector. Hold it together. And then turn it closed. Once it's turned closed, tighten that collar. Have to hold it with a wrench. Should be this one, I think. Yep. Good. So now with the acrobatic trick of holding the wrench, holding it to the truck, holding the tube in, and tightening your collar. I'll use the frame for assistance. And there we go. Push this through the hole. Put the lock washer, the nut, tighten her down. I'm going to give her a little twist. Try to keep it away from the thing here. We're going to zip tie that down right there. So right there is where I like it. So now the trick is hold this one still. That's the easy one. Oh, got it backwards. Hold this one still. Big wrenches, no room to throw them. So I'll put the grease fitting in here like so. And then cinch it down. I just think you need to take more meticulous time in when you're working on something. And there you go. Now bear in mind, initial grease is going to be all air in this tube. There we go. Oh yeah, if I wipe that off. I'll slow the rate down this time. It's a lot of pressure sticking that grease through there. It's not the biggest tube in the world. That absolutely is plenty. You can hear my compressor running in the background. That's my shop air. What I'm going to do is hook the shop air up to the truck's main air supply and start airing the truck up. And now, once it airs up, the fan clutch should disengage. I have no desire to start the engine out to prove a point, but as you see, she spins nice and free now.